You don't lose your life in one moment. You lose it in quiet obedience to voices that were never meant to control you. And by the time you realize it, you've already given your life away. I'm 99 years old, and when you live this long, you start to notice something strange. The people who followed every rule, every instruction, every expert opinion, they didn't always live longer. In fact, many of them are gone. But I'm still here, and at some point, I made a decision that shocked everyone around me. I stopped listening to doctors, not because I hated them, not because I thought I knew everything, but because I realized something most people never do. No one understands your body, your life, your soul better than you, and that's where everything began to change. Most people don't realize this. From a very young age, you're taught to disconnect from yourself. You're told what to eat, when to sleep, how to feel, what's normal, what's healthy. And slowly, without noticing, you stop asking yourself what you actually need. You replace your inner voice with external authority. And at first, it feels safe, comforting even. But here's what nobody tells you. Safety can become a cage. I remember sitting in a cold room years ago, a doctor looking at papers more than he looked at me. He told me what was wrong. He told me what would happen next. He told me how long I might have, and everyone around me believed him. But something inside me didn't. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. Just a quiet feeling. This is not the full truth. And that moment was the beginning of my freedom. You see, most people hear a diagnosis, and they hear a sentence. They begin to live as if the outcome is already decided. They shrink, they fear, they wait. But I did something different. I listened, and then I stepped back, because I understood something most people ignore. Doctors study the body, but they don't live inside yours. They see patterns, statistics, probabilities. But you are not a statistic. You are a living, breathing exception if you choose to be. And this is where everything changes. When you stop seeing yourself as a case and start seeing yourself as a consciousness. I didn't reject medicine completely. That would be foolish. But I stopped giving it absolute authority over my life. I began to pay attention to how I felt after eating certain foods, to what gave me energy and what drained it, to the rhythm of my own body, and slowly I started trusting myself again. Most people have lost that ability. They don't trust their hunger. They don't trust their tiredness. They don't trust their emotions. They override everything until one day their body stops whispering and starts screaming. But by then, it's much harder to listen. I made a different choice. When I felt tired, I rested. When I felt heavy, I simplified. When something didn't feel right, I questioned it, even if it came from someone with a title, especially then. Because titles don't guarantee truth, experience doesn't guarantee wisdom, and authority doesn't guarantee understanding. But here's the part that makes people uncomfortable. Taking your life back means taking responsibility. You can't blame anyone anymore. Not doctors, not systems, not fate. If you choose to listen to yourself, you also accept the consequences of that choice. And most people aren't ready for that. They'd rather follow instructions, even if those instructions slowly disconnect them from their own life. But I had lived long enough to see something clearly. The people who survive the longest are not always the strongest. They are the ones who adapt, who listen, who remain aware, who refuse to become passive participants in their own existence. And this is what nobody tells you. Your body is always communicating with you. Every ache, every moment of fatigue, every burst of energy, It's all information, but if you're constantly listening to outside noise, you'll never hear it. I spent years learning that language, not from books, not from professionals, but from paying attention, from being present, from asking a simple question over and over again. What is my body trying to tell me right now? And that question saved my life more than once. There were moments when I was told to follow a certain path, treatments, medications, restrictions, and sometimes they were helpful, but other times something felt off, and instead of blindly obeying, I paused, I observed, I adjusted, because I understood something deeper. Health is not a formula, it's a relationship between you and yourself. And like any relationship, it requires trust, attention, respect. But here's where it gets even deeper. Most people are not sick because their body failed them. They are sick because they abandoned their body long ago. They ignored it, overworked it, silenced it, until it had no choice but to force them to listen. And I refused to let it reach that point. I treated my body like a partner, not a machine. I didn't push it beyond its limits for the sake of productivity. I didn't ignore its signals for the sake of convenience. I listened, even when it was inconvenient, even when it went against what others said, and slowly, over time, my body trusted me back. That's something most people never experience. A body that feels safe with you, a body that doesn't need to scream because it knows you're already listening. And this is the emotional truth. At some point in your life, you have to choose who you trust more, the world or yourself, because you cannot fully follow both. One will always override the other, and I chose myself, not out of arrogance, but out of awareness, because I had seen what happens when you don't. I had watched people follow every rule and still lose their lives. I had watched others break those same rules and continue living. And I realized there is no universal path. There is only your path. And the moment you start walking it consciously, everything changes. Now at 99, people ask me what the secret is. They expect something complex, a special diet, a hidden technique, a miracle solution. But the truth is much simpler. I paid attention. I listened. And when the time came, I had the courage to trust myself, even when it went against everything I was told. And that's the part most people struggle with. Courage. Because it's not easy to step away from what everyone else believes. It's not easy to say, maybe they're not completely right, but sometimes that's exactly what saves you. So if there's one thing you take from this, let it be this. Don't give your life away so easily, not to fear, not to authority, not to systems that don't fully understand you. Listen, pause, pay attention to yourself again, because the answers you're searching for might already be inside you, waiting for you to finally hear them. And if this made you stop, even for a moment, then don't ignore that feeling. Some messages aren't meant to entertain you. They're meant to wake you up. And maybe this was one of them.